declared that the government will not allow what he called long hair in schools because one, it's not for beauty competition. That's not what. It's also because they want to ensure morals and other things are built into students. It's generated such a storm and such a big conversation. And in this on this particular show, we had a conversation about this same subject in a different twist when it came to the Tyrone Iras Magai case that involved Achimota School when they refused to admit two Rastafarian students. Ultimately, they were admitted because the court ordered the Achimota School to do so. Why are we still back here? And why is the state so concerned, some will say, about children's hair? Let's get right to the chase. Madame Rose Blankson is an assistant registrar at the University of Cape Coast. Madame Rose Blankson, it's good as always to have you connect with us.
Hello, it's good to be connected as well. Good evening to you and good evening to your listeners.
Kwaku Asante is a politician. He's also an activist and he speaks for the Lands Ministry also. But he's not here to talk about Lands Ministry matters and LI 2462 and whatever. He's here to talk about this raging controversy. Shandov, it's good to have you connect with us.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be on Ghana Connect.
Great. Abdul Karim Ibrahim is an activist. As always, he has very, very strong views on a lot of national issues. He does not share it all the time, but every now and then we get privileged enough to have him come on and share some of these views with us. Karim, it's good to have you connect with us.
Thank you very much, Kwaku, for having me. And very good evening to everybody, and especially to Madame Rose Blankson. I'm a big fan of her every time I listen to her on your show. So, yeah, just had to say that.
I'm honored.
Brilliant. And then Nana Kakari, as always, those of you who've been listening to this show for quite some time, you know her. But she's not been on for some time now, and she's made a big comeback. Nana Kakari is a Ghanaian. She's based in the United States of America, and she's connecting with us on this. Nana Kakari, it's good to have you connect with us.
Likewise, good to join you, Kwaku.
Okay, so Karim, let me start with you. Why is it a big deal if the minister says, listen, students just cannot go into senior high school with long hair. We don't have the facilities to check them. It may not instill good morals. Why is it a big controversy? These are adolescents. Why do they need long hairs to be in senior high schools?
Well, thank you very much, Kwaku. For me, I think there are two key reasons for the interest that we see in what the minister has said and what generally this policy, particularly on grooming in our high school, or the general conduct of our high schools, particularly with the boarding house, is done. I think the first thing has to be about the political and historical antecedents to this whole controversy or issue around hairs, and particularly women's hair. As many people have talked about this, who have seen many scholarly work in Ghana, in other parts of Africa, for instance, to make this point, to say that broadly there's a certain colonial racist element to policies around how we do our hair, generally as Black people, in this case as Ghanaians, and particularly as we see with many other intersectional issues for women also experience it in a very different way. So that's one. And as a result of that, in the ever more critical space that we find ourselves in, this effort to decolonize many things, to challenge the kinds of things that we have governing our society and all of that, I think it is very imperative in those instances to raise these kinds of questions. So that's one. The second part also, in my view, has to do with the general social conditioning as we have it. So if you listen to the minister when he made this point,
Karim, I think there's a lot of feedback in your thing. So Madame Rose Blankson and Naka Karim, for those of you who are not speaking yet, if you can please mute for me so that because it appears there's a lot of feedback in Karim's sound. So Karim, let's try again.
Yeah. Okay. So the point I was just making on that, and I suspect I think the microphones must still be on, so I'm also getting the feedback.
Well, it appears that we have some connection issue that we have to fix pretty soon so that we can hear Karim properly. And so, Karim, is it better now? Let me try.
Okay, I can make the point if it's clear enough for you.
But there's a lot of feedback. It's almost like when you speak, it repeats itself. So we will try and fix that. So let me hear from Shando first, and then while we try to sort that out, perhaps I think Madam Rose Blankson and Nana Kakari have all muted. I don't know if it's with your device. Please check that. Shandoff, Kari makes a point. What is it about this thing about young people and trying to police what they can put on their hair? If you go to Achimota school, like Caucasian students, people perhaps they are white or something and their families are in Ghana and they go to Achimota school, they are never required to cut it. At the height of Achimota school and the Rastafarian sector, that was one of the big issue people raised and called the Achimota school hypocrites. Because the pictures were there. These Caucasian students, they had their long hair. No one asked them to cut, whether it's Wesley Girls or anything. So if somebody from Ablekuma is going to Laboni, all of a sudden, they must cut their hair. What is it?
So quick, first off, good evening to yourself, the rest of our listeners who are connected to us across the globe. I must admit, this is a very controversial subject, but I'm still happy to share my views on it. But preliminary, let me put on record that my participation in this conversation should be detached from my official designation as a spokesperson for the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. I'm only conversating as a regular Ghanaian. First off, Kwaku, I have had the opportunity to be a school prefect before, and in Laboni Senior High School, a school that clearly is better than, your school, but I don't want us to have that conversation now. Now, I want to talk from that experiential point of view. So I'm throwing myself back into Laboni Senior High School when I was senior boys prefect and the head boy by extension. If we had a policy where young female students were given room to work on their hair or to keep their hair, I am just trying to imagine the extent of chaos that would have arisen back then. So I'm just trying to cast myself back and I'm looking at the possibilities or the challenges that kind of a policy would have posed. Because even when it came to other issues, other matters regarding to grooming and outlook, dressing and all of that, the traditional rules that we had then, for example, the length of, skirts and then how the fingernails should be kept, the use of lip glosses and all of that, all of those fashion accessories or those elements of dressing were prohibited then. But even that, there were still a lot of, challenges. And so I'm looking at what would have happened if back then in Laboni Senior High School, we had a policy that allowed for the young girls to keep their hair. Trust me, the outcome would have been completely chaotic. And that is why I tend to agree. My agreement is not necessarily because I think that those who keep their hairs are indisciplined and those who take off their hairs are more compliant. That is not the argument for me. The argument for me really is about the propensity. What can happen if we hold such a policy? So imagine that you are in a school and then you have about, let's say, 300 girls in the school and all of them were given room to keep their hair. Now, if you're asking them to keep their hair, inherently, you are also creating the opportunity for them to, as it were, under the circumstances, style it as they want. Kweku, can you imagine? Especially in this generation and this dispensation where, of course, there are a lot of fashion styles and there is the appetite to look good. Don't you think we may get into a place where now that would be the focus and the priority and the concentration of the students? I think that is what the policy really is trying to avoid. It is not a move that is supposed to, as it were, deny them their freedom or enforce certain colonial mentalities, as has been, consistently repeated on social media among the discussants on this subject. I think that it is rather a prudent intervention to ensure that the focus of students in senior high school remains the books, their studies, and that alone. Because closely related to the keeping of hair is also the keeping of beard and mustache. If you say that young girls should keep their hairs, of course, their male counterparts too may then begin to advance an argument that, okay, we want to keep our mustache. Before you realize, we are getting into a dispensation where we may not be able to contain. So I see all of this as rather a containment measure that is supposed to ensure that the focus of every young girl in senior high school remains the books. Because Cool, let's assume that you're a teacher. This is just an example. You're a teacher, you have been taken to, let's say, Wesley Girls in high school. You are the science teacher. You enter, and then all the girls there, for example, are keeping their hairs. They are styling it. They have ribbons and all of that.
How does
That
affect your
distraction.
teacher?
No, I'm
Does
saying
it
that
distract me, the teacher?
it could be a possible distraction to
the
the
teacher.
students in particular, because then their attention and their priority and their focus and their concentration would be there. I think that is the mischief that we are
They are
trying to
cure. Okay, please hold it there for me, because I think you've made an interesting point that I want to throw back to Karim now that he's back on with us. Karim, let's give it a shot. Respond to the point Karim makes about the distraction and all of that. Then I can go to Madame Rose Blanson and then I can carry.
Yeah, I still get the feedback because I think the microphones are still on. So maybe if colleagues can put that off. But yeah, so I'll make the point to say that I do not find the point that Shandov makes interesting at all. I think it is not, at least to me. It's a really much ado about nothing in the way that this is done. And that was the second point that I was going to make in terms of what the minister has said. Because I think embedded in the way that this has been framed, there's a lot of sexist viewpoints and talking points. The people are saying that might not necessarily be meaning to do that, but the point is that they are drawing their knowledge and their argument, their analysis, and the assessment of issues from a very sexist, very patriarchal point of view. That just simply the idea of a lot more freedom for a group of people, in this case, of course, teenagers, whatever, be able to do as they please and take decisions around their hair. Just a simple thing has devolved into this realm where the thinking is that it's all about the aesthetics, it's all about what the other person, in this case, Ashandov, is making an example of a teacher, what a male teacher, for instance, would be confused by. See, these kinds of things, when you reflect upon them very clearly, what you see there is, then the problem really is not about whether or not one would do their hair. And again, all the analysis about the time that would be wasted and all of that are completely out of place in my view, because the way we manage time as it's instituted within, say, the boarding house complex and all of that.
Before you continue, Karim, please, just before you continue.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. Let me make this very quick point. And then
just a second. You made a point. You made a point about the male observation of the hairs. I didn't mean to say that it would distract the teachers. No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if any teacher at all, male or female, entered a classroom where you had that kind of situation, it could as well affect the concentration of the students. So
no,
I'm
but
not
I mean,
the teacher. I just wanted
let's get serious here, Shandov. How exactly does that happen?
No, you see,
what do you see in the classroom relative to hair? For instance, that if you, while coming to the classroom from the streets where you walked and the very many different styles that you saw, what's really the correlation? What's the difference?
So this time around, you are not going to, on the streets, you are going to see them in a randomized manner, scattered across board. But this time, all of that is in one place. And I'm saying that it is a possibility, because if you enter a classroom, you're a teacher, if you enter a classroom, okay, and everybody is concerned about how they have styled their hair or how
but why are you assuming that everybody is just going to be fidgeting with their hair,
it is a very valid.
But hold on.
No, Karim, let me tell you why it's a valid assumption. You see, when you are telling people to keep their hair, let me tell you why it's a very valid assumption. When you are telling people to keep their hair, inherent in that permission is also an opportunity for them to style it. Yes or no? Now, if you are telling them to style it,
so what?
Come again.
Yeah, and so what?
Good. I'm saying that if you are telling them to style it,
I think Shandov should allow Karim to make his point, because it appears.
No, I think.
Okay. So Shandov, let's do it this way. Let Karim make the point. We'll go around the table. We'll come back to you. I see the point you want to make. Karim, your point.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll try and wrap up on this one. So the point I'm making is that if you interrogate all of these questions, what you realize is that there's really nothing there. There cannot be any argument about anybody getting confused. Absolutely nothing. But even with those that seem more germane, like time wasting and all of those things, if you are going to even take any of those things very seriously, why are we assuming that all of a sudden, if we introduce any hair or whatever around hair, the way that people are taught, the way that they go about their own time management in the school would change. There are a couple of things that we do in the boarding house together, right? We'll go to the assembly hall together, we'll go to the dining hall together, among other things. But there are many other things that we also do on our own, and we have our own time, and we are expected to manage that kind of time very well, so that when the bell rings, so that we are going to do something else, you are there on time. So it doesn't matter. People wash at different times. People make their bed at different times. People do their soakings at different times. People meet and have chats on campus at different times. So this idea that somehow, if you allow people to do to their hair something other than just giving a blanket, cut your hair up to this point, somehow everybody, and for me, that's where the sexist thing comes in, because it assumes that it's young women, it's girls, and they have no brains of their own. And once you allow them anything that looks based on their own definition and standards, they are all going to get haywire and become completely obsessed with their looks, and they will have no sense whatsoever to engage in any other thing very meaningfully. For me, I think that's complete insult. The last note I'll say on this is that, and why I think it is important, there are those who think that it's a very trivial matter. My view is that based on how one understands a problem like this in our society, and the decisions that they take, if you are, for instance, the Minister of Education and all of that, it should give us reason to into the minds of people and the way that they approach our problems, the way that they understand our problems, the way that they analyze our problems, and the kind of solutions that they think they have and all of that. When we do that, we would see that we have a far more pervasive problem that we must fix beyond this very trivial things that people come to repeat, something that they have come to hear about people's hair, about the clothes that people wear, about what discipline, what brings discipline and all of those things. If you probe it further, you would realize that there's really, really nothing there, Kwaku.
Madam Rose Blankson, let me hear you on this very much, because you work in a university setting. Of course, the university, the rules are a bit relaxed, at least for UCC, it's not UPSA. But what do you make of this?
Thank you once again, Kwaku. And yes, before I got the opportunity to work in the university system, I had the opportunity to work in a basic school. And I had the opportunity to become a head teacher of a basic school for 4 years. Kwaku, I agree with Karim. The issue of girls being restricted as to how to keep their hair is basically sexist. We are making it look like our men, our teachers in secondary schools cannot control themselves if they see these young girls looking all beautiful. Now, let me give you a background. I attended a training college, Our Lady of Apostles Training College, between 1995 and 1998. Training colleges were post-secondary institutions. So we go there and we are called post-sec. So you are not in the university, you are not doing a diploma, you are doing a PS course, which is a post-sec course. And in the training colleges, we were allowed to keep our hair. Now, the discussion is not for girls to keep their hair mandatorily. The girls should be allowed to keep their hair if they so desire. Now, in the training colleges, we had some of our mates who had their hair cut short. That is how they wanted to keep their hair. That is what they felt suited them. That short hair was what was comfortable for them. Just as when you come into our society, even in the universities, we have people who have cut their hair short, who have what we call a boy in their hair, who have dyed their hair, even though the hair is short. We have lecturers with hair that are cut short. We have male lecturers with dreadlocks based on their religions and their beliefs. So in training college, we had a strict hairstyle. If you decide to keep your hair long, not to cut your hair or not to trim your hair, you have to braid the cornrow braid style, all back or in a ponytail. If you don't want to braid, you always have to hold your hair in a ponytail or comb it all back. And strictly, we adhered to that. Now, let me take you to Ghana Atomic Energy Commission Basic School, where I had the opportunity to head that school for almost 5 years. When I went to that school, I took the opportunity to interview parents because I got the feedback that a lot of parents withdrew their children at a point in time. And this is a quasi public school. When I talk about the school as being a quasi public school, I know some of the old students will come at me because at some point the primary school was purely private, but the JHS was public. But it got to a point it merged. So I will always say that it's a quasi public school. It's a quasi public school because it is under a ministry of state. And it is quasi because parents support the school with some fee payments. Now, when I got the interview done, it came out that a lot of the parents withdrew their children from that school to surrounding private schools. Their reasons were that the children were made to cut their hair. So at a meeting, we came to an agreement. Okay, you want your girls to keep their hair the way they like. Those who want to keep long hair can keep it. Those who want to keep short hair can keep it. Is that the case? They said yes. Okay, then we will have a strict rule as to how to keep your hair. So in the year 2022, no, 2019, 2020 academic year, thereabout, Ghana Atomic Energy Commission Basic School went back into allowing the girls to keep their hair how they want it, but with strict restrictions. If you are keeping your hair and you are braiding, you have to braid with cornrow all back, no attachment. You can perm, but you don't leave the perm on. You braid all back, cornrow, or ponytail. And it's worked. We in their newsletters, we put a picture of the hairstyle we want, distributed to all parents, including those who didn't even want to braid. So if we keep saying that in secondary schools, the girls will concentrate on their hair, from secondary school, immediately they complete, they are going to the universities and they become adults. You see, as a nation, we are indirectly creating markets for people who produce artificial hair. This is because these girls haven't been deprived of that freedom of keeping their hair, yearn so much to have their long hair, yearn so much to look different, so that when they come out of secondary school, in a hurry to go and buy these hairs, whether human or non-human, synthetic or whatever, to fix on their hair.
Fix on their hair. Miss Rose, please hold it there for me because I would want to come back there. I think I like the perspective you laid as a former teacher in the basic level and now being in a tertiary institution. Nana Kakari, you are in the US. I mean, there's not a problem in the US, but you are Ghanaian also. So looking back to a conversation like this in your home country, how does that make you feel? And where do you stand on this?
You know what, Kwaku? Interestingly, while the United States education system is debating how much freedom is necessary for education, Ghana system is debating. I agree with the education minister's conservative, traditional, colonial era approach to the Ghanaian senior high school student. I had my senior high school education in Ghana, Achimota School. It's been thrown, the name has been thrown here. And you know what? I strongly believe that the mandatory short hair policy should be abolished, and I'm going to tell you why. It negatively affects a student's identity and self-esteem. I went to Achimota Preparatory School and transitioning to Achimota Primary, Achimota JHS, and then Achimota School. That brief transition from the primary school where I was allowed to keep my hair, and immediately I have to get a dramatic haircut to the JSS boarding school system, and of course, keep the hair short to the Achimota secondary school system. I can tell you, I remember very well, I remember the moment where my dad actually was cutting my long hair. And you know the video that went viral, that was me when I was at that age, crying. I remember, I had my parents trying to console me as if someone has died. That's how much I was, in fact, weeping. You know what I'm saying? And also, additionally, that haircut thing, that policy, in my opinion, I feel like it promotes that harmful Eurocentric idea that our natural black hair is unprofessional. And there actually is no scientific evidence to suggest student hair length has any bearing on their academic focus or discipline. Look, real character is molded by values, accountability, integrity, definitely not haircut. And so forcing that uniform appearance and the policy kind of discourages that individuality, critical thinking, and self acceptance, which, by the way, are qualities that are essential for our future leaders. That's if we are developing these students' characters to be meaningful citizens in our society. I believe instead of controlling hair, schools should teach proper hair care and time management, focusing on substantive issues like improving learning conditions and tackling, these corruption that's ongoing in most of our schools. I think the point I'm trying to make is the emphasis should be on nurturing that hygiene, time management, and strong mind, that individual thinking, and not policing a student's natural hair. The natural hair has nothing to do with, how disciplined a student is. And, I don't know. But one quick thing that I wanted to note, the Education Minister, Haruna Iddrisu, kind of focused on the fact that it's not, the institution is not a beauty contest. I agree. But who said a girl keeping the hair is solely because we are up for pageantry? That's not true. The hair has nothing to do with our academic. And so if you are saying that the only way to keep that discipline in these institutions, there are other institutions like the Supreme Court, the Parliament of Ghana, Electoral Commission. Is the minister saying that the women that go to work with their long hair kind of are not, can diminish that or take away that disciplinary from these institutions? And if not, I think that we need to stay away from that colonial traditional thinking and allow the girls, it's their right. Every human being has their right to express their, their freedom. And that's basically the point. And real quick, I think one of the gentlemen said something about imagine a teacher going to the classroom and girls had their hair. And
no, so I think he clarified that he didn't mean necessarily female teacher and male students. Well, maybe I turn it around at male teacher and female students and all that. But Nanaka, please hold it there for me, because this is where I want to come back to Shandov. Because listen, around the table, really, Shandov, what is it about long hair? A student keeping a little bit of a bushy hair in school, that detracts from anything.
In the keeping of hair is also the granting of permission for those who keep those hairs to style it in the very first place. And so it is not just about keeping the hair. Hold on, the students. But I think there is something that we have all ignored. I mean, all those who are dissenting on this subject, there is a fundamental point that we are all ignoring. You see, everybody in the senior high school, okay, we all agree that every student, once enrolled in the senior high school, you have your fundamental human rights intact. But when you enter the senior high school, compared to the university, you are given the time to sleep. You are given the time to wake up. You are given the time to, report to class. You are also given restrictions around gadgets that you are allowed to use and gadgets that you are not allowed to use, and all of that. The keeping of hair, for the avoidance of doubts and for the records, is a subset of the embodiment of all of these regulations at our senior high schools in the first place. The question now we have to ask ourselves is that why have we cultivated these rules and regulations in the senior high school in the very first place? Is it to deny people of their rights? No. Basically, it is presumed that if you are in the senior high school, you are still getting into adulthood. And so in that period of your life where you are still being molded and shaped, you have to be, as it were, groomed or cultured or configured in a particular manner prepares you for responsible adulthood. That is basically the goal. And this hair issue is only a subset of that motivation. When we say now, however, that okay, let us give room to female students, and I think I want to draw this point in very quickly. It is not sexist because, like I'm saying, drawing from my experience as a school prefect, talk about hair in the senior high school, while you are referring to what may be on top of the female student, you are equally looking at what the young men keep as beards and mustaches. So it is basically the same thing. If you're going to tell the female students not to wear, to keep it, equally the men too, the male students too would, of course, you would want to allow them keep their beards as well. All of that, okay, creates a certain possibility that we honestly do not want. But if we are going to enforce it, I'm telling you, the next conversation that will happen is that, well, if keeping my hair would not interfere with my academics, then of course, if I also choose to come for prep or regular lessons without wearing the prescribed uniform, so long as what is on my body or my skin would not affect my academics, I should be allowed. The next conversation that would follow is that, okay, if me at 10 p.m. I don't feel like sleeping, why should anybody come and tell me that I should go and sleep at 10 p.m. and that beyond 10 p.m. if I am found roaming or sitting down, I'll be punished? We do not want to get there. So let us have the bigger picture in mind. The hair issue, like I'm saying, is only a subset of the body of regulations that have been incorporated into senior high schools to instill a certain sense of responsibility and grooming and configuration for our young brothers and sisters. Indeed, when they get to the university, is there anybody who's going to stop them from keeping their hair or styling
if
it
they
as
go
they
to
want?
if they go to UPSC?
that is only an exception. It's an outlier. But generally, when you go to the university, Kweku, back at the University of Ghana, you were not sleeping 1 a.m. You are walking about. You were doing everything that you wanted to do. I had that right as well. But back then in Laboni Senior High School, no, I was being regulated.
Good.
So that context is important, and I'm emphasizing it again. It is only a subset, okay, of the greater culture in senior high schools that is intended to mold our young brothers and sisters in a particular way. If we keep in the name of advocacy and rights saying that, okay, allow them, the next time your brother who's going to senior high schools will say that if I'm home, I'm allowed to use my phone and laptop. Why is that if I'm going to senior high school, they say I shouldn't do it? Why is it that they are saying I shouldn't wear jeans when I'm in senior high school? In any case, my clothes doesn't affect my academics. We should be careful. We really have to be careful.
Karim, I remember at the height of the Rastafarian question, some of these issues came up. That, okay, well, the next thing is to be traditionalist, the next thing is to be this, the next thing is to be this. But Shandoff has given specific examples that are a bit close to home about dressing, certain things. Would you still say that, well, listen, that is stretching the argument into realms of absurdity? Because even if that is so, and so what?
I'll hold you there, Kwaku. I think it's completely ridiculous. Shandoff should do better.
Thank you.
Because, hello, I was also a senior boys prefect and SRC president in a mixed school like Laboni Senior High School as well. So I've seen it, right? And I don't think that the conclusions that you are drawing are true. Because, so all of a sudden, you have a problem with anything that grants more liberties to people, because there's this slip slope argument that you have that somehow everybody will come asking for A, B, C, D. Look at all the things that you yourself listed. Which of them, even in the very absurd situation where everybody now comes running for things, which of them really, on the balance, brings us some negative outcomes or less utility than they would in a situation where we don't have it? Because take, for example, the fact that everybody would want to come and use their laptops and all of that. Why not? Why have we not gotten to the point where that should rather be the conversation that we are having? That when people at teenage level are in high school, they should be able to have access to all of these resources so that the outcome of the education will be better. Because people are getting this in Legacy Girls High School. They are getting it in TIS. They are getting it in many other places, right? They are taking those things there. They are going there in the hair that they choose to wear and all of that. Why do we assume that any of such liberties are only an exclusive right of the rich and powerful in society? So that if it were to go to a place like Laboni, somehow hell will break loose. Right? What kind of infantilization do we do to ourselves
it is
to
not
be
at
able
all.
to attempt
Karim,
to
please, I
sustain
want to
this
ask
kind
So,
of
you.
Shandoff, let Karim finish the point. I'll come back to you. I promise you. No. Just note it. I see you have a white paper there. Note it on the paper. I'll come to you.
Each other, please.
Thank you. So the point that I'm making here is that at the, if you take any of these objections, right, what you must ask yourself is not to say that, well, this is what we came with, and when we came, we were told that cutting the hair is part of a certain uniformity and discipline and whatever is all that there is. I don't think that's the kind of conversation that we want to continue to have in our society. What we are doing here is interrogating that. So we are asking, the minister should present some justification for why A, B, C, D must be done. Your response
And
cannot
not
be
just
that.
only justification. We want to see data and evidence. This policy has been going on for decades, okay?
Precisely.
And so if you are saying that this is how you want to mold our young students and enforce discipline in these schools, where's the data that shows that a haircut, simply hair, has anything to do with a student's academic and discipline and what have you? Like I said, I do want to acknowledge the fact that the schools are not there for beauty contests, but one will also argue that that's not what the girls are saying.
Kwaku,
You know what I'm saying?
I think my colleagues around the table.
Right. I mean, the gentleman talking about prefect and whatever, you're not making it. So let me just finish what I'm saying, because I'm a girl and I went through that horrific cutting hair, and I have long hair. For me, I was able to get out of that school system or what have you. What I think it should be done is give the rights, the freedom of expression and that human right to the girl child, the student. Let her make that decision on her own, and then implement management. Well, like you said, in the boarding schools, you wake up at 5:30, 30 minutes to take your shower. Everything is time management. Implement that time, even if it's weekends, for the girl to manage the hair. And by the way, you are a guy. Who told you that I have a very long hair? Who told you that I spend an hour? I spend mostly 15 minutes. That's basically aligned with my brother's time of brushing the hair and trying to groom. It has nothing to.
Maybe perhaps because I know with Sakura, he doesn't know anything about hair management. Hold on. Shandoff, I'll come to you. Because you are here in the studio, I'll come to you. You are a Sakura man, and the people watching on social media will see that. But I'm Rose Blanc saying, very briefly,
Yes.
what should happen? Because we are just about 7 minutes. Let me be quick about it.
So I'm very happy. Nana Kakari has said a lot. You see, I have some past students. When I see them today, I don't feel confident enough to even look at them in the face, because I was a teacher who was a strict disciplinarian who was made to enforce these barbaric rules of insisting that girls cut their hair. And I feel ashamed. Sometimes I wish I would even meet some of them and say, I'm sorry for implementing such rules. They are barbaric, they are archaic, they are not useful. I don't want to say they are useless. I quickly want to use the issue of fashion show and students coming to say they want to wear mufti to. I want Mr. Shandoff to understand that my two daughters went to Wesley Girls High School. And in Wesley Girls High School, when our girls are going to school, we give them muftis. It is part of their prescribed wardrobe. They don't take checks to school. They don't wear gingham, what we call check. In Wesley Girls High School, there is no gingham. Apart from the Chase Deer t-shirts and other uniforms, they send muftis. A pair of jeans trousers, a pair of some tops, and prescribed numbers.
What is the
you have
prescribed?
6
In the exercise of right, what is
mufti,
prescribed?
so that you will be able to wash. You don't accumulate and keep them and wait till the end of the term before you go home and wash. They use these
In
to
the
teach
exercise
them
of right,
how
what
to
is
dress.
prescribed?
So it even boosts their confidence. And we know in Ghana, if you are talking about schools where their girls come out and they are so confident, they are intelligent, they are hardworking, they have it all. We will mention Wesley Girls High School as one of these schools. So if you are saying because they will keep their hair, they will wear mufti, they will come and ask to wear mufti. They wear mufti to prep. They only wear their uniforms to classroom. And even the uniform, for the sake of grooming and confidence, they don't wear one style for the 3 years. In Form 1, there is a style. In Form 2, there is a style. And when they get to Form 3, they have another style.
That's interesting. Getting to know that about Wesley girls. That's pretty interesting. So, Nanaka Kari, let me come to you, then I'll come to Shandoff. What do you think should happen? And if you can do this for me in a minute, do you think should happen with this fiat from the education minister and all the big conversation that has happened since then?
I think that the focus should shift from the hair and the grooming and the what have you to actually the academics in the school. It's interesting to hear what's going on in Wesley Girls. In my time in Achimota School, they had a rule where your skirt should not be 1 inch above and below the knee level. And you actually will have some teachers measuring with a tape, come to school with a measuring tape to make sure that the skirt. And guess what? As girls, we still find a way to fold it and get our what we feel comfortable with. Also, there shouldn't be chemicals in our hair. I can't tell you how many times that we come back from vacation and there's still some chemicals just to soften the texture of our hair. And so if the authorities, school officials are going through the trouble every year, every academic year, trying to enforce, and students are also kind of in a way resisting these kind of whatever and finding creative way to still get their skirts a little bit shorter and still find a way to get some chemicals to soften their hair, then maybe we need to reevaluate this policy and make changes. I think quickly moving forward, I think that they need to implement some holistic revision of this grooming policy, implement time management, encourage maybe a class or workshop that will allow students to learn about how they take care of their hair, time management, grooming, and most importantly, grooming for them to be able to feel comfortable and confident in pursuing their education. The focus should be on developing the child to the career, preparing the child to be a good citizen, and forget about that hair, long hair. It won't happen. It will happen. We're going to keep our hair. We are girls. We need our hair, period.
Shandoff.
In conclusion, let us look at this scenario. My name is Abdul Karim Ibrahim. I'm a Ghanaian citizen. Okay? Under the 1992 Constitution, my rights are preserved and protected. When I'm home, nobody tells me when to sleep. Nobody has a say in when I eat and when I choose not to eat. Nobody has any influence or voice whatsoever in the gadgets that I use. As a human being who is 15 years, who's going to senior high school, when I enter senior high school, I should also be allowed, consequently, in that same fashion, to determine when I choose to eat, when I choose to sleep, what I choose to wear. Hold on.
Stretching the argument to
it is not a stretch. It's not a stretch because no. Those who are dissenting
because even
on this,
all of us human beings, adults.
No, hold on.
We don't live life like we want.
No, hold on.
There are certain rules every now and then. We are just talking
and
about.
This is part of
we're
it.
just talking about acceptable.
And this is part
we're just
of
talking
this.
about
No,
acceptable bounds.
No, I think you're interrupting me unfairly. Listen, I'm saying that the argument that the dissenters have advanced is the fact that if you are keeping your hair, it would not interfere with your academic work. In that same vein, then we should also start embracing any conversation around the fact that, look, if I'm in senior high school and I wear mufti, I'm using a mobile phone, I don't sleep when it is siesta or when prep is over, to the extent that all of those do not interfere with my academic work, I should be allowed to live my life. After all, I have the rights to do so. Is that the kind of dispensation we want to move into? And so I'm returning to my point. I'm saying that the hair issue is only a subset of a composite body of regulations that have been well thought, designed to ensure that in our senior high schools, where we have, younger boys and girls who have not attained adulthood, the goal is to ensure that we attempt, of course, grooming people is not a perfect exercise, but we want to at least create a certain ambience or a certain architecture of conformity so that we instill certain values in them. But if we begin to hold on so stringently to the conversation around rights, that okay, it is their right, so allow them, we may get to a point that we may not be able to contain the outcomes. Because like I'm saying, if I want to wear jeans and sneakers, and I want to pierce my hair, and I want to put on a cap, and I want to put on headphones in my ears, and I want to, the popular autofista dressing, for example, and all of this would not affect my studies in the senior high school, then what the really, then nobody should care. We shouldn't get there. Rules are there to ensure that, yes, people may have their varying perspectives, but all of us in the society, we bring out rules so that there is some level of conformity. If we are not careful, what will happen? We may not be able to contain it.
Right, sound off there. My name is Kwaku Asante. Abdul Karim Ibrahim, thank you very much as always for coming on. Madam Rose Blankson and Nana Kakari, thank you for making a comeback. Of course, we'll be hearing more from you on this show. It's been a big conversation about rights, rules, where they stand, absurdities. I mean, we'll go on and on and on. I'm sure you're having this conversation in your cars, in your homes, with your friends, with your family. Where do we need to get from that? I have very strong opinions on that. I've shared that on fellow Ghanaians on Joy Prime, the morning show. Some of you have already gotten to see that. You don't have to miss News File tomorrow with Samson Ladi and Yenini and the team. As always, very big conversations, insightful ones on that platform. My name is Kwaku Asante. I'll see you guys same time next week right here on this platform. Have a great weekend.